A look now behind closed doors. Each operator has to have a well-equipped workshop to keep its buses on the road. The wheels must keep turning smoothly to bring in the revenue. Following years of wartime neglect, things were getting back to normal by the end of the 40s. Glasgow had separate facilities for its massive fleet of trams and buses. Mechanical washers removed the need to wash each vehicle by hand. Any prospective driver with London transport had to face up to the skid patch at Chiswick. The recruits climbed in the cab, drove flat out onto a wet surface, slammed on the brakes, and then tried to control the bus as it went into a skid. All good fun when watched from a distance. Here, an STL class was being used in 1952. When Sunderland replaced its trams in October 1954, the opportunity was taken to make a film about the corporation's transport department. Included was this footage shot at Fulwell Depot. Here a bus receives an overhauled engine. Whilst another undergoes a major body overhaul. At Wallasey, views of a chassis being steam cleaned, seats retrimmed, being repainted, and running in at the end of the day. Like many other facilities, this one was demolished in the 1980s. Where does an old bus go to die? Some escape into preservation, but the vast majority end up in scrapyards. These twisted remains were filmed in a graveyard at Stratford-upon-Avon. Too worn out to find new owners, the majority of London trolleybuses were stripped of any valuable parts before the gaunt skeletons were broken up at Colindale. The trolleybus really died during the 60s. Everywhere it was buses in, trolleybuses out. In 1963, 3 more municipalities, including Portsmouth, switched off the power. These are just a handful of the towns and cities where trolleybuses were sacrificed during this electrical purge. Why did the end come so swiftly? Despite buying new vehicles in 1954, Hull stated passenger traffic had declined and new housing estates extended beyond the existing trolleybus wiring. In Nottingham, where they ran from 1927 to 1966, their demise was hastened by central area redevelopment. The last new vehicles dated from 1952. Newcastle also cited central area redevelopment, together with lack of mobility and high operational costs. Operations here had started in 1935. New vehicles were delivered up to 1950, an extension opened in 1956, but the end came just 10 years later. In Belfast, the trolleys had started replacing the trams in 1938. 20 years later, the first route was closed. By 1968, it was all over. At Huddersfield, the trolleys were very much at home, soaring effortlessly up spectacular grades. However, power costs and redevelopment led to final abandonment in July 1968. The very last trolleybuses bowed out in Bradford in March 1972. No one was building new vehicles, and the second-hand market had dried up. So the end was inevitable.